So, what connections does the 106 have? Normally, when I'm sitting in the goldfish bowl, I will have the keyboard in front of me, and then I have the camera in front of the keyboard looking at me, and you can see the back of the keyboard. Can't quite do that out here. I don't really have the throw space unless I was turned around that way, which I might do for some videos. So what I thought I'd do is I just turn this around and stick it on top of a couple of speakers. So I'll move the camera at a slightly better angle so you get a slightly better view of the back of this thing, and then I'll just run through what connections are on the back of it. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. Whenever we talk about the Juno-106 or any keyboard, we very rarely show you the back. I always show the back of the keyboard when I do these videos, and what I've done here is just propped the keyboard up on top of my two speakers that I'm using out here at the moment, and we walk through what's on the back of it. Now, you can tell this is the 106 because in earlier versions of this you had the Roland I can't remember, the data connector would have been on the back of this machine about there, I think, or it might be over here actually. And what the Roland connector was all about actually being able to pass data backwards and forwards, and it was a proprietary socket that lived on the back of the keyboard, and that went into the proprietary sequencing unit that Roland made for this particular keyboard. Now, that was the Juno 60 that was made in 1982. This is the 106 that was made in 1984, and as you can see, we've moved on from that proprietary connector now, and what we actually have is full-scale MIDI on the back of this particular unit. So that's what this is. This is the MIDI in, out and through. Standard 3-socket configuration. Works exactly the same way as you'd expect to see this particular configuration work. The only interesting thing about this is that if you look at these sockets, you can see that this socket has had quite a lot of something into it over the years, because you can see sort of a ring rash, and that ring rash unfortunately is to do with how people put MIDI cables into keyboards. So there's a MIDI cable standard like that, and what people do is they put the MIDI cables in and then they swizz them round like that, which is what develops that ring rash on the socket. I'm not sure it's really going to come out on camera. Anyway, if we move from left to right, as I'm looking at the keyboard, well, my finger's now on the far left, we've got the power socket. So this machine is a UK machine. It is a 240 volt machine. It says so on the back here, and it will consume 25 watts. Okay, so 25 watts of power is roughly 1/10 of an amp. Okay, so you should really be fusing this particular machine with no more than a 1 amp fuse. Okay, so that's the first thing. Then we move along, and we talked about this on other machines. This is the sort of Roland Memory Protect switch that Roland put on many of its keyboards of the day. When it's in the middle, you can actually write to the memory, so you can take stuff in through the MIDI sockets. When it's on the left or when it's on the right, you can't write to the memory. So that's what that's all about. MIDI, as we said. And then we've got a really interesting function switch, which I have to be honest and say I'm not 100% sure what it does. I think it's to do with transmission. So when it's in position 1, it will only transmit keyboard presses. When in 2, it sends bender and program changes, and when it's in 3, it does everything. I think that's how that works, but I haven't got a manual to compare it with, so I'm kind of going from what's written on the back of the keyboard. Then if we move over onto this side of the keyboard, past the nice big Roland sign, have you noticed that over the years, even though it doesn't look like it, Roland have actually changed the logo slightly? Just look into that. The older keyboards are very rounded, and the newer keyboards are slightly squarer. Anyway, we move across here. So this is how you can tune the keyboard up and down. So on a lot of keyboards around this time, this was a software function, but on this particular keyboard, it is very much a manual intervention. So you would reach around the back here and you would just toot that one way or the other to flatten or sharpen the sound you were getting off the keyboard. And I've known people get into real serious problems because somebody before them has set the keyboard up in such a way that you can't flatten it or sharpen it, or you can't tune it to the midpoint. Then we come on to this area here, and I've talked about this a couple of times on keyboards of this age, but this is how Roland wanted you to back this keyboard up. So yes, you do have MIDI, and you could do a sys dump through these sockets here, but this was the cassette player route of backing up this particular keyboard, and you've got to load and save. And again, the other thing that's really interesting about this is because, you know, typically anybody who had a ZX Spectrum or any other computer of the time that didn't come with a proprietary tape recorder, so I was going to say the Commodore 64, but the Commodore 64 came with its own tape deck, as did the VIC-20, but Spectrums, Acorn Electrons, oh god, I can't think of any. Oric was another one around that. Anyway, they basically came with a tape socket, the Yamaha CX5M, but they all take the 1/8 inch, sorry, the 1/8 inch jack, whereas this takes a 1/4 inch jack. So you'd have to have a special cable made up for this, because all the tape recorders around the time were using the smaller version of it. But hey ho. Funny enough, I mean, I'm actually using one of these big cables at the moment, where, you know, that's the bit for the tape recorder, and the other end of that, which is one of those, is plugged into the speaker. And then we come over here and we come to the sort of the pedals. So there were two pedals available for this keyboard, or two functions, should I say, available for this keyboard, depending on where you press the pedal in. If you put the pedal into this socket here, which is the middle socket, that acts as a basic sustain pedal. So press it, note holds, release it, note releases. And then this one here would allow you to shift through the patches in the banks. And it would be basically one depress of the pedal would move you one bank forward. Okay, so the idea was that when you were playing a set, you effectively pressed the pedal and you'd move to the next bank. God forbid you pressed the wrong pedal in the middle of the set, because all of a sudden you were on the next patch and the band was still playing the last song. And have we done that before? Yes, we have. Then you've got a headphone socket, standard 1/4 inch headphone socket there, and then we go on to the outputs. So this had a stereo output, which was left and right. They don't write left and right on this for some reason, I don't know, but it's mono is left and left and right is stereo. And then we come to the final thing on here, which is level. Most musicians I have ever been involved with always have these things set to high, because why wouldn't you? But it was really done to try and level out the mix on the desk. So if your keyboard was putting out too high a signal, what you could do is just drop it down, low, medium and high. I've never ever in a gigged keyboard seen that set to low. I've seen it set to medium a couple of times where there was something else in the rig that the keyboard was kind of drowning out. But other than that, I've never seen it set to low. I don't know why low's there, but it's there for some reason. Somebody will probably put me straight on it. But that's the back of the Juno 106. Nothing really to talk home about, but you've seen it.